What you are talking about is the fact that we will sign on, people will sign on for salaries on places, and then the salary will be 200 grand. And that's awesome. However, you're not getting 200 grand. You are probably going to get somewhere around 120 to $150,000 of income after the taxes are deducted, after your benefits are deducted, after your retirement plans are deducted. And most of the time, most people are still functioning off of the fact that they think, oh, well, I'm making 200 grand. You might make gross on paper 200 grand, but in reality, once you actually receive it and what hits your bank account is not 200 grand. And you can't act like you're living on 200 grand if that's not what you're receiving. That's where most people get in trouble. That's where lifestyle creep really starts to hurt.
The truth related to what we believe and what we live is that when we understand the power of dividend paying whole life insurance, it can allow us to grow our dollars tax advantaged to create wealth while keeping more of our dollars to use later. We did not say you can't have a 401k. We didn't say you shouldn't have one. But what Nate said earlier is, do you know why you have it? Do you know why you're funding it? And do you know what it's going to do for you and where you want to go? As Brock would say all the time, why do you think?
Welcome to the Cashflow Legendz podcast with your hosts, Nate, Brandon, and Brock. Remember, our insights are not direct financial advice, so consult with your financial team before making any decisions based on the topics discussed in this show.
Welcome back to Cashflow Legendz. Nate, Brock, and I are excited to be here today. I always like when I get to glance at Brock because he has a smirk on his face sometimes, and I never know quite what he's thinking.
Just happy to be here.
Yeah, just happy to be here. When we're not recording, I'll say, what was that thought, Brock? But I can't always do that on air because it might not be something that Brock needs to say out loud yet until we talk through it on record.
Something my baseball team used to always say in high school when we were just doing stuff we absolutely hated. We would say, all smiles, glad to be here.
All smiles, glad to be here.
That's something that I always think about in my head.
Well,
just in general, not that I hate this, but just in general.
No, that makes sense.
Glad to be here.
Well, I had this little funny the other day. Me and my wife and the kids were sitting around talking. We had some friends over, and my wife was saying one thing, but her face said something different. And my daughter said, "You need to fix your subtitles."
It's funny. Yeah, I have those sometimes.
Yeah. I think we all can, depending on who we're around, for sure.
We've told our kids before they need to fix their face. I thought that's what you were about to say. I was like,
fix your face too. She knows better. Well, I hope she knows better than to say that to her mother. But fix your subtitles is more of a joke, but it's like, I like that because my subtitles don't always match my words. So today, guys, we're going to talk about something that I think about if I would have heard this conversation 10 years ago, how I would have received it, or if I would have received it at all, or if I would have just said, that's all a lie. And I can't trust these guys telling what we're about to talk about. So we're going to talk about how we are in a system related to our money that is created to keep us poor. And I'm speaking mainly on middle class, but let's get real clear on some definitions first. Middle class, Brock, has expanded dramatically over the last 50 years in the sense of numbers, but when we say middle class, kind of give at a high level what that means to you. And we'll touch on that because it can mean different for different people.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've never even really thought about middle class. If I had to think about it, I would say, the average American who has a regular W-2 job, making less than probably 450 grand, 500 grand a year, owns a home, maybe rents an apartment, doesn't have any passive income or anything, just, has their job, has their family, has a home. I would say that's, your middle class.
Nate, I think for you and I, and this is where I want everybody to hear us thinking through this out loud. That's how we operate a lot. Brock interacts with people that make a lot more money than we do often. So I would think middle class would be, as we're talking about, probably 150 to 250. But all those same things. Has a house, rents, goes to, even if they're a business owner, the numbers are still around there as far as, they're not necessarily getting dramatically behind, but the system is not allowing them to get ahead. They feel like they can't catch up, or they're on a financial treadmill, or those kind of things. Although those things can be true, even with someone who makes millions of dollars. But today's point of view is lies that keep the middle class poor. And here's the first thing that I would start us with. So, Nate, try to go back to 10 years ago where your thinking was then. Okay. And you and I are sitting around visiting because, we already knew each other. We had a trusted relationship. And I said, hey, Nate, what if I told you the system that we're currently in related to money flow, bill pays, earning money, W-2 income? What if I told you it was not designed to help you, but to keep you chained to it or independence of it? How would you have taken that 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 20 years ago? Kind of go through any of those thought processes.
Hey, we're going to have to, I don't know if it was my network or somebody else's, but you cut out on me for.
It was yours.
It was mine? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's all right. We can keep going. You may hit it again.
Just
ask the question again.
Yeah.
All right,
just go
here's
ahead
the
and ask
question.
it again.
So if you went back, Nate, 10 years ago to even 15 or 20 years ago, and I were to tell you, me and you were sitting around, visiting, catching up, talking about, all our past and how we grew up together. If I were to tell you, hey, Nate, did you know that the system is designed, the money system, to keep you chained to it or dependent upon it? Would you have thought I'd gone crazy, and maybe take it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, or start 20 years ago and work to, right before we read Becoming Your Own Banker and how our mindset started shifting?
Yeah. If we flash back 10 years ago, I was a business owner, owned a retail company. And so I would have been pretty receptive to, hey, if there's a better way, please let me know.
Yeah.
Now, if we go back 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
I would have been like, well, Dave Ramsey never said any of that, so I'm probably not going to be listening to you.
Yep. Okay.
Because I was entrenched in that line of thinking.
All right. Now let me shift to Brock, because this is going to be this is a point that I didn't realize I wanted to make when we started this, but it's going to be relevant. What about you, Brock? If I told you that at any point between the time you became an adult, what I mean by that is you weren't under your parents' house anymore, or rules or any of that. Would there ever been a time where you heard that and what would you have thought if I said that to you?
That was kind of the way I was raised. It's like they are telling us rules to play by that are different than what they play by. You need to do something else.
So there's a key piece here. Nate and I are reading.
I think this is relevant to. I saw this yesterday that a $100,000 income in the year 2000 is basically $54,000 worth of purchasing power today.
Okay. Yeah. So comparing you guys, and I would be the same way if it was 20 years ago, I would have probably checked out in the first couple of words of the sentence I'd have said to Nate about, did you know it's rigged to keep you chained to it? Like I didn't have the bandwidth or the depth or the understanding or the previous conversations to even connect the dot. All right. For Brock, this is the way he grew up. His environment talks about this all the time. That's the norm. Okay. So this is encouragement. If you're listening to this and it's making you uncomfortable because it is making you think differently than what your environment tells you, lean in. What's the worst thing that happens? You learn something new. You get more clarity. You ask more questions. You go down a rabbit hole of learning about something you never learned before and go, oh, I didn't realize that. And the world is really good at telling us what we need to know to keep us where we are to get what it wants to get from us. which is said another way, keeping us chained to the system, dependent on it. Because Brock, if you and I were meeting with anybody in that income earning potential of 150 to 450,000 a year, and we sat down with them and we said, hey, what I'm about to ask you is the truth, or what I'm about to tell you via a question is the truth. The question is will you believe it or not, or will I have to prove it to you with numbers? And that is that you're working close to a third to half the year for someone else. That is not made up. That, Brock, you prove that over and over again when you take people through our processes. So does Nate. So do I. But what does everybody tell you when you get in the conversation of how much money do you make? They always tell you the big number before all the gravity that's built into the system pulls on it.
Mm-hmm.
So touch on that a little bit, Brock, just at a high level, that we first have to put our pride down to learn something new.
Yeah. The first thing I would say is, because of what you said, of you are working for someone else, you are not saying, and I can speak for you here because I know what you're trying to say. You are not saying that being an employee is a bad thing.
100%. I am not saying that.
Not everybody is a business owner.
That's right.
That's the first piece. But what you are talking about is the fact that people will sign on for salaries on places, and then the salary will be 200 grand. And that's awesome. However, you're not getting 200 grand. You are probably going to get somewhere around $120,000 to $150,000 of income after the taxes are deducted, after your benefits are deducted, after your retirement plans are deducted. And most of the time, most people are still functioning off of the fact that they think, oh, well, I'm making 200 grand. You might make gross on paper 200 grand, but in reality, once you actually receive it and what hits your bank account is not 200 grand. And you can't act like you're living on 200 grand if that's not what you're receiving. That's where most people get in trouble. That's where lifestyle creep really starts hurting people.
Yeah. Nate, can you think of any conversations you've had recently with anyone that we've been working with, current member, soon to be members, where some version of that conversation is relevant as far as what Brock just touched on?
Yeah, it's a common frustration with people whenever they truly look at what they're actually bringing home versus what they have in their mind as far as what they make versus what they actually bring home. And yeah, and it goes back to taxes, benefits, all that other stuff. But then you start looking at the debts that people have taken on, and the amount of interest they're paying to other institutions and everything like that. And what they quickly realize is there's a very small percentage of every dollar that they make they actually get to keep.
Yeah, and I think it's important to touch on expanding on that a little bit. What does it really mean to keep a dollar? What does that really mean? Okay, so
it means being able to bring it into a system that you control that has uninterrupted growth on it.
Okay.
I would disagree with you on that. I would disagree. I would say that it is in your world, it is in your atmosphere that you have not consumed yet.
Yeah.
Right? Because our whole life, most people are asking, can I make it? And the question in hand is, can I make it to retirement? Right? And then once you get to retirement, the question changes to, can I take it? Right? Of how much money can I take? Well, most people live in this world of fear, and so they don't end up spending the money because they don't know how, if it's going to last as long as it's going to. So if I was to think about, what does it actually mean with the dollars we keep? Well, it's somewhere in your world. It just hasn't been consumed yet, either by you or your next generation.
Yeah, I was thinking through the lens of IBC, but that is definitely the more relevant answer to anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I'd have gone back and had that question asked to me, keep to me would have been very short-term minded. It'd have been saving, saving in a savings account until I needed it again. So if I'd have had Brock around me, when I was his age, or somebody like Brock, he wasn't here, but somebody like Brock, then Brock would have asked me, hey, Brandon, something like this. What amount of money have you already spent in your lifetime? Just give me a round number, just to guess. So I may go, well, I make this much a year. These are my living expenses, blah, blah, blah. I've been, an adult for 10 years, $1 million, whatever the math was. And then if Brock said, hey, Brandon, could you write a check for that $1 million right now? To me now, that is what keep means. Could I write a check for the money that is flowing through my life that comes to me? And if I can't, that means I'm not keeping it. I'm a pass through of it. It is passing through me. Now, keep in the traditional world means savings, right, Brock? Would you agree? Often, like that's where 401ks and qualified plans and all these things become a part of the lingo when we sign up for a job.
Yeah.
What are they really saying? That's the difference in what we're saying. You go sign up for a new job now and you have to opt out of qualified plans.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it, their whole premise is, oh, well, this is what I got to keep. As in, here's what I got to bring home and here's what went into my 401k. Well, if you spent the money that you brought home, you didn't keep it. It just went somewhere else.
Yep.
It's gone. It's to never return again. So you didn't keep it.
Yep. So, Nate, on that point, we were having this conversation earlier today, and we're not going to bring IBC into it in depth right now, infinite banking, become your own banker, and whole life insurance and how to use it. But the point is if it's a system created not for us, but for someone else to be used for their benefit first and us to be a part of it, kind of chained to it. Nate, how often do we hear people talk about having to opt out of their qualified plan instead of getting educated on it to be able to know how it's going to benefit them for today, tomorrow, and in the future the way they want to? How often does that come up? Like as far as people going, oh yeah, I really reviewed my 401k plan.
Never. Not never, but yeah. Very rarely does anyone understand their accounts that they're putting money into. And the thing that we say all the time is like, we're not against people who are funding those types of plans if they know why they're doing those things. But what we are against is people who are blindly putting money into things that they don't understand. And so in every conversation that we have where we're looking at someone's financial life and looking at the decisions that they're making, to take this from Brock, we're just asking why. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And if they know why, that's a good indicator that they're actually leaning in and learning about the things that they're a part of, that they're participating in. But if they have a very misguided understanding of what they are doing, then it might be good to have a conversation and pull back the curtain and help them understand. And what we find often is when we are having those conversations for people who haven't really taken the time to think about what they're doing or learn about what they're doing, is they usually go, maybe I should be doing something a little different.
Or they get uncomfortable and shut down.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And Brock, I'll be very transparent here. Yesterday, Brock and I had a quarterly calibration. We call that just a review, and he was helping me think through things. And I was honestly frustrated with myself because it dawned on me in that call. I've been putting off the call because I was fearful is not the right word, but just accountability is not easy to lean into.
Yeah.
Okay. And he said what I say to people all the time. He goes, Brandon, it's easier for me because I'm outside the jar. I can see the label better. And I was like, why do I teach this all day long? And I'm just throwing myself under the bus, but I struggle to implement it.
Yeah.
And so if you're hearing this for the first time and you've been told, max out your retirement plan and you'll be set, and you can't honestly say what set means, what max out means, and how that's going to occur, that is a great place to lean into. It doesn't mean that you are not smart, not doing the best you can. It means you currently have a present level of understanding that you want to explore further. And what's fascinating about Nelson Nash and Parkinson's law, which we talk about a bunch if you go back and listen to other episodes, is the industry has figured out, the businesses that offer 401ks and matches and those kind of things, they've figured out how to use Parkinson's law against us and condition us to think that that's an automatic savings plan that's going to get us where we need to be accumulation wise for a big number that's going to allow us to have what we need in 20, 30, 40 years. I was a part of that. I believed that until I kept looking at my teacher retirement system and going, the math is not mathing as I began to learn more. I'm like, there's no way, even if the system can retire me the way it says, that if everybody's like me in their 14th year with the same amount of income I made, with the same amount of rules, same way, there's no way this is sustainable. Like, it was pure math at that point after I knew what was going on behind the scenes. So, Brock, what is the punch the biggest hole and max out your retirement plan and you'll be set? Just genuinely, lovingly, be kind, because probably 80% of people that listen to this think retirement is going to occur just fine if they max out their retirement plan.
I think that there are many ways to go about it. The first way being that for the first time, a 401k has actually gone like a full generation with people in the workforce from 87 to now. And what you find is the median 401k is nowhere close to where it's supposed to be. Like the golden number is $1 million. 90% of people who retired January 1st in 2024 were retiring with less than $1 million.
Now, Brock, let me ask you a question real quick to be sure that I'm following you. Less than $1 million inside the 401k?
No, less than $1 million entirely in all of their money.
Okay. So next question related to the qualified plan, retirement plan, 401k, whatever it is that before or after taxes?
That's before taxes.
Okay, key piece. That's what I want to touch on. Go ahead.
So the next piece I would go to is the tax piece. And it's like, you hear a lot of people talk about the fact that they do the 401k or the, even business owners, they might say, oh, well, I do a SEP so that I can save in taxes. Have you ever met somebody who didn't pay their taxes? Like, have you ever met someone that, they're behind on taxes or anything? Like, is the government like nice about it? And they're like, oh yeah, you can just pay us whenever. Like, do they give you a discount? Like, what do they do?
Oh, they don't leave you alone, and they're really, really good at tracking you down and making it very hard.
That's right. So why then is the government so happy and so comfortable with the fact that you are not going to pay the taxes today? And they just are so happy with the fact, oh yeah, put it in your 401k, please max it out, defer it. It's fine. It's great. We're totally okay. Why is nobody asking that question? Like, why are they comfortable with you doing that? If you miss a tax payment, they will hound you so hard until you do it.
100%. Yeah. One of my mentors early on for Nate and I, because I was trying to think through this exact thing with retirement, because I'd associated traditional retirement of like, I'm going to get to 65, I'm going to leave the workforce, and I'm going to have enough money accumulated to live the life of my dreams, even though I didn't even really know what that was. Okay. And he said, Brandon, you grew up in the country, you've seen farms. He said, would you rather be taxed on a seed or a harvest? And it's such a simple question. Would you rather be taxed now on a seed or later on the harvest? And so I started asking him all these questions because my present thinking was the best I had. And I said, well, was it a big harvest? He goes, I don't know. Depends on you. I said, okay. I said, well, I think the seed. I said, well, I know what the taxes are if it's the harvest. He goes, nope, you're not in control of that. Do I get to pick what age? Nope, you're not in control of that. So then it started making sense. There were questions that I had never asked before that are important to ask.
Yeah.
First and foremost, retirement needs to be something you're very at peace with explaining and what it means to you in your current season of life, and with flexibility to change it, adjust it, maneuver when life changes, when kids come along, when braces are needed, when a new house is needed, when a new hot water heater is needed, when the thing you thought was going to happen doesn't happen and life kicks you.
Yeah.
That's more important.
Yeah. Put another way, would you rather collect profit from selling seeds or from profit on the harvest? Which would you prefer?
I like that bigger idea of the harvest and profit.
Yeah. Well, who's collecting your harvest on the 401k?
Yeah, and we haven't even brought into this equation, and we've gotten stuck on one of the truths or lies that we're told, but we haven't even brought into the equation the assumption that we're going to live to the age we think we're going to live to for retirement. But if you ask anybody who's lived for 10 years plus, and this is something I'll do often visiting with people, if you ask anybody, hey, do you feel like there have been some opportunities that you would have leaned into if you had cash you controlled, large chunks of cash, or whatever that means to somebody? It can be different for everybody. The answer is almost always yes. Hey, do you have some debt that's really kicked your rear end that you wish you could get rid of if you had a large chunk of money? The answer is almost always yes. And guess what? Go ahead, Nate.
Well, just this thought of, a retirement account, an accumulation account, essentially only matters if you're able to fund it for a long time consistently. And so if you become disabled, I mean, we talk about this all the time, and yeah, I think Trent was the first one that ever asked us this question. If you become disabled, does your retirement plan become disabled as well? And so the same thought of, we expect to live a really long time. We also expect to be able to be an able body for a long period of time. And so those two things are really important when we're thinking through, like, how do we want this to look in the future if things don't go according to plan?
All right, so I'm going to say the truth tied to this, because there's a few more I want us to be sure we touch on. And I want everybody listening or watching to go, have I heard some version of that? Do I believe that version? Has it proven to be true in my life so far, or in people around me, or in people that I know that are in different seasons of life, different ages? As Brock's dad always tells us, we all go through the seasons of the go-go, the slow-go, and the no-go years. And that's different for everybody a little bit, but those 3 seasons do happen if we live a long life. All right. So the truth related to what we believe and what we live is that when we understand the power of dividend paying whole life insurance, it can allow us to grow our dollars tax advantaged to create wealth while keeping more of our dollars to use later. We did not say you can't have a 401k. We didn't say you shouldn't have one. But what Nate said earlier is, do you know why you have it? And do you know why you're funding it? And do you know what it's going to do for you and where you want to go? As Brock would say all the time, why do you think that? Why do you believe that? What I found, guys, and I'll go the second lie, which is debt is always bad. What I found is we do what we're doing because it's the best knowledge we currently have, which we got from Brock's dad, Trent, but I see it all the time. And so I said this the other day, and Brock, jump in on this, for the debt is always bad. And the debt is always bad. There always has to be 2 sides to everything. Debt is good or debt is bad, the heads or the tails of the coin. But hardly ever does anybody go, is there actually an edge to that coin? And what does that edge do? And so I can tell you tons of stories about debt being bad, even when I was trying to make it look good for me and use it for good things. But that was a behavior issue. It wasn't the debt. Debt can only be what you make it. So, Brock, touch on that debt is always bad thing.
I don't think it's always bad. I
Yeah.
think you can either be in debt or you can have debt. When you have debt, it can be income producing and good for your world. But if it's, it could also be bad in the sense that it's suffocating your cash flow. You're losing money every time you pay on it. It's like it does not going anywhere. And when I think about it, if we had to characterize it, good debt would be long-term payments, low interest rate, and it's deductible. Whereas bad debt would be short repayment schedule, high interest rate, and it's non-deductible. Right? And so that's how I would classify it and understand, like, it's not good or bad from the sense of, like, it is what it is. Like, debt is what it is. What determines if it's good or bad or not outside the characteristics is how are you using it.
There you go. There you go. So one of the notes that I had here that I really like that I think could be important is Nelson Nash said often words really matter. So what if we said strategic debt to grow capital you control to create more peace of mind? That's good debt. As opposed to debt that controls me, that I work for, that takes my peace of mind away. Those are two different types of debt. But what you will notice if you start looking is everybody is trying to get you to focus on one of the two options only. Oh, it's only good or it's only bad. It's only left or it's only right. It's only up or it's only down. And what we're saying is both can be true based off of behavior and your knowledge and your understanding and your situation and what you're trying to accomplish. Yesterday, when I visited with Brock doing my calibration, if you would have told me I'm where I am now 10 years ago, I would have said, Lord, thank you. Thank you. I can't fathom. I can control my time. I can go here. I can go do these things that I couldn't do 10 years ago. Couldn't even wrap my brain around it. But I'm focused more on what I don't have that I haven't created, because that's the way our brain works. It's like, well, I got here. That's just the norm now. So I don't think about where I came from. And Brock just the way Brock does, just said, hey, here's the deal. Let's do this. And that's what we need in the conversations we have with people about money. So, Nate, paying off your mortgage as soon as possible should be the goal always. We got some 50-year mortgage conversation going on the social medias now.
Please say that is a lie before we move forward.
100% that is a lie. Yeah, that is a lie. Yep. Thanks.
The one thing that I will say about that is sometimes financial decisions are not economic decisions, they're emotional decisions. And we meet people sometimes that are just dead set, like that is the thing that is holding them back is their mortgage in their mind. And they're dead set on getting it paid off as soon as possible. And even if you look at the numbers and the numbers don't make sense, there is still something about that idea that gives them a lot of peace.
And Nate, when you say numbers don't make sense, you're just meaning math.
Yeah, just the math.
You could save a little bit more money or keep a little more money by not paying it off here or paying it off, yada yada. Okay.
So there's two camps essentially. There's one who says, "Man, I really want to have this paid off because it's just a weight in my mind, and I got to get past it." There's another camp that says, "I would rather go put that money to work in an asset to pay for my liabilities."
Rocky, got anything you want to add to that? Is that pretty spot on?
Yeah. I mean, when I think about it, there's nothing wrong with paying your house off early. It's just a matter of, are you going to do it based on the product or a strategy? Because, I was in a meeting just the other day with a big time executive and business owner, and the husband was like, I don't know if we should pay this off early. And the wife was like, yeah, I really want to pay this off early, but what my problem is I don't know if we free up some of this cash flow, if we can save it. Like that's the deal. So we can fix that part, but let's actually look at the strategy on what you guys are doing it today. At a 15-year mortgage, you would pay it off in 15 years. Now, even if you could even add more money to it, the next question is, well, hey, you know what? What if we refinance that mortgage to a 30-year mortgage? Let's just see what the difference in the monthly payment is, and then taking that difference and investing it somewhere that, let's just say gets you a 5% rate of return. What year does the account balance grow larger than the debt balance? And at that point, it was funny because it was actually the 15th year that we could pay it off, or the 14th year. It's like, okay, well, which gives you more options in life? Because if you tried to pay your home off as soon as possible, if you needed the money, you got to borrow again, either through a HELOC or refinance. And it does nothing to your monthly payment. Like if you come into a cash flow crunch, you don't get to lower your mortgage payment. Like it is what it is. Whereas, if you stretch it out as long as possible, now you're in a zone to where if cash flow crunch comes along, you can handle it. And you also have reserves somewhere else that help you weather the storm of life if need be.
Brock, I'm going to add to that real quick because it's something that we talk a lot about when we're working with people on cash flow and how true, I'm going to say wealth first, but I'm really leaning into this lately in all my conversations and even in my own life, and what true peace of mind means that the money brings. Now, that's different for everybody. All right. But when we're talking about that, what you're saying, Brock, is and I'm fascinated by this here lately, is more choices with our dollars is uncomfortable early on when we're rethinking our thinking. It's almost like we'd rather just be like, oh, I can only do the 401k or keep it in cash under the mattress. I don't want any other choices. And if we stop there and we don't go, why is that? Why do I feel that way? Why does it scare me to think about taking control? What we're really getting to the root of is a behavior thing, like the wife said in your example. I don't know if we can save this if we control it. So I'd rather guarantee savings is locked in, even if it's not the best environment to do it. That's what we're really getting to. And so last one, so we can tidy up. And we kind of touched on this intermittently, kind of behind the scenes in all the conversations. Nate, life insurance is only for after you die. That is a lie. We know that's a lie. We live this every day. But how many times have you heard some version of that? Or did you believe it at one point?
I definitely believed it. Just carrying term for so many of my working years, just because I assume Dave Ramsey was right when he said, buy term, invest the difference, and one day when you're debt free, you won't need life insurance. And then years ago, I found out that he still has life insurance, even though he claims to be debt free, or even though he teaches people that you don't need life insurance one day. So the reality is life insurance is for living because it gives you permission to make different decisions with your financial life.
Brock, would you add anything to that related to decisions and control and certainty or anything else?
I don't think there's a lot to add to that. I almost said no, and then I was going to add something, but I am going to add something.
All right, add something,
I would
Brock.
say that even if whole life insurance had no cash value at all, the life insurance would still be for living because it allows you and gives you the permission to spend and enjoy your money in retirement with the peace of mind that you'll never run out.
Yeah. I'll frame it a different way. And I had this conversation the other day, real life conversation. I said, and we were the person was leaning into rethinking their thinking about what they thought life insurance was. That was the first piece. So they were already leaning in. They'd already done their own studying, had a lot of good questions. And I said, okay, if life insurance, specifically in this case, dividend paying whole life insurance with a mutual company, which is what's tied to what we teach and live, if it could make your current retirement plan better by your definitions, which was more peace of mind, more control, more certainty, more permission to go travel, is there any reason that you don't want to explore that? And she was like, absolutely not. So you and I have to agree that any hesitation, if the math and you put the math with the behavior match up to do that, and you don't want to do it, you are saying you are scared of a truth. If you believe this is true. Well, she did. She said, I believe in the product. I know people who've used it, blah, blah, blah. So it is fear of the unknown or having to unlearn and put new actions in place that keep us from doing things that are good for us more often than just about anything else.
Yep.
Because we know that work is going to be required to unlearn or to change our behavior. So when you're listening to this, know that we get that. And if you are going to live an abundant life that God's called you to live and design for his kingdom, you're going to get uncomfortable often. That is a part of it, not a thing you can bypass. If we are comfortable all the time, that means we are giving in to the arrival syndrome and going as good as it's going to get. And so what we encourage everybody listening is where are you so comfortable that you're just coasting? And get people around you, us or others, that ask you tough questions like Brock does. Well, why do you do that? Why didn't you schedule with me earlier? Why didn't we prioritize this? You'll find it almost always comes back to behavior and consistency. Because after you do it, you're like, man, I sure wish I would have scheduled that call with Brock 6 months ago. And I'm not even joking. I wish I could not have that on recording, but it's the truth. Because that one little 15-minute conversation connected some dots, opened up some pathways, got me clarity and peace of mind with stuff I've been wrestling with for 6 months. But this is relevant in all walks of life, is the point here. It's not just money. And that's why Nelson, when he wrote Becoming Your Own Banker, spent the first half of the book talking about behavior and mindset and how you think about how you think. All right. We hope that was valuable to you today. We hope that we are always saying things that make you think about how you think, that encourage you to lean into what you're thinking. And even if it gets you a little bit fired up and you're like, I don't believe that, we want to hear from you. Put it in the comments. Be nice about it. You don't have to be ugly. Put in the comments. Tell us what you think. Tell us why you think that. And let's have a conversation about it, because we get better when we have our thinking challenged as well. So until the next time,